I'm Russ Lowenthal. I'm a part of the product management team for database security, and I'd like to welcome you all to the June version of AskTOM for database security. The AskTOM sessions are intended to give you a direct channel into product management, product development, in this case for Oracle Database Security. We provide these sessions to give you a forum where you can ask questions you don't get answered elsewhere, and also to communicate with our customer base things that may be of interest, product announcements, technical topics. Each of the database security AskTOM sessions includes product announcements related to database security. We'll usually pick each month some technical content. This month we'll be talking about centralized management of keys for transparent data encryption, and we make sure to leave time at the end for Q&A. For the Q&A, you are not limited to just the topic of the day, Key Vault. You can ask any question about database security. If we don't know the answer, we'll take your contact information and do our best to find out the answer for you. I do want to remind you this session is being recorded. What that means is if you have a question that you want to ask and it's not a question that would be appropriate to ask in open forum, please just send me an email and I'll do my best to get you an answer back that way. You don't want to, for example, give away details of your corporate infrastructure or passwords or anything like that on an open forum. We do hold AskTOM sessions every month. The database security ones are the second Thursday of each month. And we started this month a new experiment of doing 2 sessions, one very early in my day and one later in the day. And the goal is to be able to provide a little bit broader coverage of the world so someone on the opposite side of the world isn't having to wake up and join a conference at an unnatural time just to ask a question. So that's what AskTOM is all about. From a product announcement standpoint, Database Security Assessment Tool 2.0.2 is due out any day now. We had originally planned to release it last month. We hit a issue in QA and pulled it back to fix something. It's back in QA now, and we expect it out any day. For those who are interested, some of the new features that you can see in this version are support for TCPS connections to the database. That's actually what we pulled it back from QA for. When we were going through our QA testing, the testers found that we were having our customers set parameters that could have been done automatically, and our design goal for DBSAT is to make it as simple as it possibly can be. So we went back, we fixed that to simplify those SSL channels as much as we could. We've also added support for Exadata Express and Autonomous Data Warehouse, and we fixed one bug with the new sensitive data discovery where it wasn't doing well discovering sensitive columns in tables that had more than 2 million records. Okay, so sorry, 2 billion records. So that is the Database Security Assessment Tool 2.0.2. This month, we've also released Bundle Patch 8 for Audit Vault and Database Firewall. One of the new things in Bundle Patch 8 is a series of reports that are designed to support compliance requirements, particularly around sensitive data. We're going to show you some of those reports in a few minutes and give you just some little tidbits on that, but you can get more details in the Audit Vault and Database Firewall Auditor's Guide. We've added in support for UEFI boot. Those of you who have been trying to install Audit Vault on Firewall on some of the newer servers, particularly the Oracle X72s, that only ship with UEFI with no option for traditional BIOS boot, we're finding you couldn't do that. Since UEFI boot is definitely the way the market is moving, we wanted to make sure we have that accounted for in the product, so we've done that with Bundle Patch 8. We've updated our Java support to account for JRE9, and we've restored the ability to run the Audit Vault agent as a Windows service. We removed that a couple of bundle patches ago, and there was a good popular demand to return that. We've updated our support for MySQL to the latest version, and we've given you the ability to manually configure the Audit Vault agent to use a NAT IP for Audit Vault server. Again, we've had some requests for that, usually with cloud deployments where you're seeing more use of NAT internal to an organization. For those new reports, If you'll go to the Reports tab and look under Compliance Reports, you'll see a new section called Data Privacy Reports with 4 different reports dealing with sensitive data. And these are all about telling you what sensitive data you have and who is accessing the sensitive data. And you can see an example of the top report, the sensitive data report, on the right-hand side. Now, to know what sensitive data is, Audit Vault has to be told. And this is one of the more interesting things because it's something you haven't seen in Audit Vault before. To tell Audit Vault what sensitive data you have, we've given you 2 options. One is you can run sensitive data discovery from Enterprise Manager, and you can export a sensitive data discovery job and import that into Audit Vault. The other option, because not everybody has license access to the sensitive data discovery report in Enterprise Manager, is to run the free sensitive data discovery tool that's part of the database security assessment tool. And there you can take the JSON output from DBSat and again, import that into Audit Vault and Database Firewall. And this is how your reports know which columns are sensitive so they can tell you who's accessing it and who has rights to. If you take a look in the Audit Vault and Database Firewall Auditor's Guide, Reports chapter, look for the section on Data Privacy Reports, and you'll see Importing Sensitive Data into the Audit Vault and Database Firewall repository. Despite the name of the chapter, it's actually importing sensitive data descriptions. So you're not really bringing in any sensitive data. Okay? Now, also included in Bundle Patch 8 in the README is an updated roadmap. And I know not everybody gets to the bottom of those READMEs, so I wanted to point that out this month. There are some good new announcements in that roadmap. One of them is that in Bundle Patch 9, the very next version, you can look forward to seeing the direct ArcSight SIM integration de-supported. We have no customers that we're aware of that are currently using this integration. Everybody is doing their integration through syslog. It just didn't make sense to leave that in the product anymore. We will also be removing support for some older versions of SciPace. These are versions that SAP de-supported long ago. We're going to go ahead and stop doing QA checks and tests on those since we know of no customers that are using them. We've announced deprecation in BP8 with de-support in the next major release of Audit Vault for our F5 Big IP ASM integration, some of the older JREs, and for Database Firewall inline bridge mode. For inline, we'll shift all inline development to proxy mode. Our reasons for this, there's a lot of them. There's very few customers that are using inline bridge mode, and the challenges with configuring high availability in bridge mode have really proven to be a burden on our customer base. Proxy mode is a lot easier to configure HA for because it's a simple matter of fronting it with a load balancer. So we think this is going to make your lives a whole lot easier than trying to do it with inline bridge. And that's really it for product announcements. So let's talk a little bit about transparent data encryption, which is crucial to today's main topic, which is managing keys for transparent data encryption. We first introduced transparent data encryption back in Oracle 10.2, and we have been continuously developing TDE ever since. We started with column level encryption. In 11.1, we recognized that people wanted to do more than just a few columns, and so we expanded our support to allow for table space encryption. Nowadays, almost everyone does table space encryption. We added support for offline conversion of table spaces from unencrypted to encrypted in 12.2, and then backported that all the way to 11.2. We added support for non-US encryption algorithms like ARIA, SEED, and GHOST in 12.2. We also added support for online conversion of table spaces from unencrypted to encrypted in 12.2. And in the most recent database release, 18.1, we've added support for bring your own key and per PDB key store, where each different PDB can have their own back-end wallet or key management system in 18.1. So this is kind of the history for TDE. Now, TDE, like I said, very, very popular. Of all the database security options, this is the most sold and the most implemented one. And we have seen the adoption of TDE growing by leaps and bounds, primarily driven by compliance regulations like GDPR. And as we see more and more people adopting it, there are some questions that come up frequently. So I just want to talk about a few of those. One of those that we often get is, what can I expect the impact of transparent data encryption to be on query response time? Now, TDE's overhead is typically very low, and this is especially true on engineered systems where you often can't even measure an impact. For an OLTP workload, it's usually somewhere between 3 and 7%. But notice I said usually. There are edge cases where that overhead is higher, and we do recommend you test before you move to production with it. Edge cases that are likely to hit you. If you have an application that makes very little use of buffer cache, say something that's always doing direct path reads, or an application that is heavy on write activity with very low read activity, then that is a use case for which TDE overhead is going to be higher. Okay. So you do want to test beforehand. We're often also asked, what is TDE's impact going to be on storage for the database? And a lot of this is people who are looking at older documents from Oracle 10 when we only had column level encryption. For table space encryption, the overhead of TDE is very, very low. You're going to have one extra data block per data file. So if you've got 16K data blocks, you're going to have 16K overhead, even if the data file is a terabyte in size. If you have 8K, it'll be 8K. Very, very low overhead. For column level encryption, nothing has changed since our original release. You will have somewhere between 1 and 52 bytes extra space consumed for every column you encrypt, for every value in every column. And that comes from 3 different areas. We pad the size of the column out to an even multiple of 16. So if you have 2 bytes, we're going to add 14 bytes to that and make it 16 bytes. If you have 17 bytes, we're going to add 15 bytes to that and make it 32 bytes. We always pad up to the next multiple of 16. Optionally, we will add a salt, and we will add a message check, a check to make sure it hasn't been tampered with. Those can increase the size of the padding up to 52 bytes. So if you're making extensive use of column level encryption, you will see a lot more impact on database storage than if you're just encrypting at the table space level. Again, almost everyone who encrypts nowadays does it at the table space level. Performance tends to generally be better. Management of it is much easier. You don't have to worry about what happens if someone adds a column to a table or puts sensitive data in a column that I didn't expect them to. It's just really the way the world has gone. Okay? Now, on to the main topic. TDE encryption implies that you have an encryption key. And encryption keys are stored somewhere. The default place to store an encryption key is in a file called an Oracle wallet. And an Oracle wallet goes to a standard called PKCS12, and it is encrypted and protected by a passphrase, but it's stored on the same server as the encrypted database. And what that means is, if an attacker gains access to your database server and steals your database files and is able to steal your database wallet at the same time, your level of protection for that encrypted data is only as strong as the passphrase you have for your Oracle wallet. Now, if you've got a 25-character passphrase. It's using letters, numbers, uppercase, lowercase, all that stuff. It's going to take a while to break that passphrase. If you've got an 8-character passphrase, it's not going to take very long to break. So if you are using wallets, we recommend that you use a very complex, very long passphrase. But your best security comes from removing the encryption key from the database server altogether. And for that, we use the Oracle Key Vault. Okay? Now, Key Vault, when it works with a database, works under 2 different scenarios. One scenario is you can take your wallet that you've got on the database server and you can upload a copy of that wallet to the Key Vault. And this is really what we kind of thought people were going to do when we first designed Key Vault. We thought people want to make sure they have a backup of it. There used to be a time when about every month we'd get a call of someone who had forgotten their wallet password, or, absolute worst case, they had deleted their wallet. If you forget your wallet password, we can try and help you brute force it, but that's the best we can do. If you lose your wallet altogether, you've lost your data, because without your encryption key, there's no way to decrypt the data. So those were very bad scenarios, and Key Vault gave us a way to work around that. The other way that Key Vault works is to allow you to do online master key, where the database connects directly into the Key Vault, and rather than a copy being on the database server, the database, when it needs the key, simply goes to the Key Vault and gets the key. Overwhelmingly, people are using online master key. Our original expectation is that very few people would use it, because we thought people would want the availability concerns that you have of having another piece of infrastructure to be allayed by using the wallet. But no, the security is definitely trumping, and people are using the online master key. Now, this is normally what we talk about Key Vault for, is working with Oracle databases. But Key Vault does a lot more than that. Key Vault works with Java key stores. Key Vault works with SSH keys. MySQL, a few versions back, added in support for transparent data encryption, and just like Oracle Enterprise Edition, MySQL's Enterprise goes to the Key Vault for its keys. Solaris allows you to put their keys in there. Even ASM will use Key Vault. So there are a lot of things that can use Key Vault to host its keys, but the main one that most people think about is the database. Now, Oracle databases, when they use an online master key, it's not always just a single instance talking to the Key Vault. It is frequently some of the more distributed instances. You can have multiple databases on the same machine. You may have multi-tenant. It's very common to have rack, where you have multiple instances accessing the exact same data and therefore the same keys. Golden Gate, Active Data Guard, all these are cases where you have multiple clients that need access to keys. And by storing them centrally in Key Vault, you don't have to worry about synchronizing keys between different machines. For Direct Connect, if you weren't using Key Vault and you were running rack, what you used to have to do was, every time you had a key change, you used to have to copy the wallet to each of the different rack nodes. And if you missed a node, then what you could wind up with is some nodes that were up and running and able to see data, and some nodes that couldn't read any encrypted data at all. And it was usually very hard to troubleshoot. If you have multiple databases on the same machine and you're using physical wallets, you have to be careful, because what tells the database where its wallet is either environment variables. In other words, where do I have Oracle base and Oracle SID set to, or a directive that you put in your SQLnet.aura. And we've had several cases where multiple databases using the same Oracle home, someone not thinking about it, would have one database overwrite another database's wallet. Key Vault gets rid of all those problems. If you're running Data Guard, you've got to worry about copying, wallets from one server to another every time you do a key chain. Same thing with Golden Gate. If you're doing capture from archive log, you've got to worry about how you're going to read those archive logs. A lot of things that Key Vault makes easier on you. So Key Vault does that again just by distributing keys out to all the different databases, but the master keys remain inside the Key Vault. From an architecture standpoint, Key Vault is very simple. It is a software appliance, and if you've ever installed Audit Vault and Database Firewall, a Key Vault install is going to look very familiar to you. When you install it, it lays down its own operating system, it lays down the database, it lays down the application on top of that database. Key Vault talks to endpoints. These are not really agents, but they're avenues for communications between the Key Vault server and the host servers that you're running databases or middleware on that you install on those servers. And when you install an endpoint, the endpoint sets up a mutually authenticated TCP/S connection between the Key Vault server and the database or middleware server. Okay. All administration of Key Vault is done from the admin console, which is a web application, and Key Vault supports standard backups to SCP, anything where you can SCP a file to. Key Vault is integrated with just about everything in the Oracle infrastructure. Very, very easy to install. From a patching standpoint, when it comes time to patch Key Vault, you get one patch that is delivered as an RPM for a patch, and it patches the operating system, the database, the application all in one go. You can pick any hardware that is certified with the Linux version that Key Vault is running on, and that changes between different versions of Key Vault. You're not limited to it, and the licensing metric for Key Vault is per server, not per CPU. What that means is if you want to install this on a 500 CPU server with 5 trillion gigabytes of RAM, you can do that. And it won't be any different than if you install it on a VM with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 1 CPU core assigned to it. So you're able to size your Key Vault server based upon your needs rather than having to worry about licensing considerations. Again, if you're familiar with Audit Vault and Database Firewall, it's the same paradigm. There's no charge depending upon the size of the Audit Vault server. There's no different charge depending upon the size of the Key Vault server. Same kind of idea. Key Vault leverages the Oracle security technology you're already used to. It runs on Oracle Linux. It uses Transparent Data Encryption. It uses Database Vault. It separates out access to individual keys using Virtual Private Database. It does the things that you would expect to do on any database that you wanted to secure things with. For provisioning an endpoint, remember this is that software piece that you're going to install on the server where you want to attach Key Vault to. The very first thing you're going to do is you're going to enroll your server in Key Vault. This is done via the admin console, and you'll get an enrollment token. From there, you're able to download the endpoint package. And when you run that endpoint package, you'll give it the enrollment token that you see on your screen from the enrollment, and the endpoint will install. When the endpoint installs, it generates a certificate that identifies your server, and that certificate is set up for mutual authentication between the Key Vault endpoint and the actual Key Vault. The actual binaries are very lightweight for Key Vault, so the endpoint is very small. There is a configuration file where you can do things like setting cache timeouts and ping intervals and such that goes with Key Vault. More on that configuration file in just a little bit. But actually getting a server working with Key Vault is just 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're done. Very, very quick, very, very easy. Key Vault itself, it's all ready to go as you start uploading keys into it. Those keys all get a unique identifier, and any system that is enrolled in Key Vault that has permission to see the keys, you have to grant permission just for one system to see another system's keys, can download that key and use it. Again, if you're working with DataGuard, if you're working with RAC where you have multiple servers, this is a real easy way to get your key distribution taken care of. Okay. Current version of Key Vault is Bundle Patch 6. And for bundle patch 6, we have monitoring via SNMP. We also have the ability to install an enterprise manager agent on Key Vault. That's supported. There is not a separate plugin for Key Vault. It installs just like a regular Oracle database server, but you'll be able to monitor the Key Vault uptime, Key Vault CPU usage. You'll be able to monitor the Key Vault database and storage consumption, just like you would on any other server. Key Vault audit logs can either go to Audit Vault or to syslog. Key Vault allows you to send email notifications, again, standard SMTP. Key Vault, of course, is installable in high availability mode, and the current version of Key Vault uses Active Data Guard for its high availability mode. So you'll have a standby Key Vault and a primary Key Vault. Backups are done over SCP, and if you look at the bottom, this is a new feature that we added in Bundle Patch 4 for Key Vault. There are some customers who want to connect their databases to an HSM. This is a hardware security module as opposed to Key Vault, which is a key management system. Now, the challenge with hardware security modules are that they tend not to handle heavy loads very well. We've had people who have connected their Oracle databases directly to an HSM, and the HSM is unable to deliver keys quickly enough for the database to stay up. If the database requests a key and doesn't get it back before it times out, the database assumes something has happened to the key store and the database will shut down. You might think, well, why is this happening? Databases don't need the key that often, do they? And the answer is they actually do need the key quite frequently. A database will go out and get its master key from the key store on startup. Every time you bring a new table space online, every time you bring a new data file online, if those table spaces or data files are encrypted. Now, those are operations that don't happen that often, so that really doesn't put a lot of load on things. The database always checks to make sure that its key store is there every 3 seconds. It will ping the key store every 3 seconds, make sure it's alive. Again, once every 3 seconds, not that big a deal. The database also has to go out and get a master key every time a new encrypted file is created. And new encrypted files aren't just table spaces. Redo logs, archive logs are new encrypted files. And because they are encrypted, you have to have the master key in order to read them. So every time there's a log file switch, the database goes out and gets the key. But it gets better yet. There's a lot more log file switches and everything we talked about before. The real kicker, the one that causes the very heavy load, is if you have a process that is going to try and read an encrypted table space directly. Think parallel query slaves or server processes doing direct access to the file rather than going through the buffer cache. Those have to get the master key, and those can happen hundreds, thousands of times per minute. So the result of that is the database puts a very heavy load on its key store, and databases connecting in directly to an HSM don't work very well. So how do you handle that? Because there's times when you want the security of an HSM. What we've done, starting with Bundle Patch 4, is we allow Key Vault to talk to the HSM. So Key Vault is also encrypted, and the HSM will protect the master encryption key for the Key Vault database. Databases store their master keys in Key Vault. Key Vault has its key protected by the HSM. So at the end of the day, if everything's shut down and you try to bring it up, if the HSM isn't there, there's no access to your Key Vault and therefore no accesses to your database. And you can tell an auditor that yes, you're using an HSM. Okay? I'm going to pause for just a second because I see a question in chat. Is Oracle OKV, I'm assuming 12.2 BP6 backwards compatible to Oracle databases 11.203 and 11.204? From the 11.203 is no longer under support, so we don't test it, but we're certainly compatible with 11.204, and I know of no reason why 11.203 wouldn't work. Did that answer your question? Oh, perfect. Thank you. Key Vault, we first released it back in February of 2016. That's the current release, 12.2. The first release was 12.1. We gave a platform refresh, so we moved our database version up to 12.102. We moved our Linux version up to 6.6. Don't worry, we've increased it since then. We added in a lot of enhancements from 12.1. We learned a ton in the 12.1 release about what needed to be there. Particularly, we added in support for REST interfaces. Any cloud deployment, REST interface is the way to go. We also added in STIG certification because any of our government customers were frequently going out against the Secure Technical Implementation Guides, and we wanted to make sure that they would have a clean STIG report when they ran that against Key Vault. So that was the base release, 12.2.0. Now we're on bundle patch 6. There's been a few releases since then. In bundle patches 1 through 3, we added in support for managing keys on the cloud. I'll talk a little bit more about this in just a few seconds, but this was a major use case. We added in that integration with hardware security modules. The first one we did was SafeNet Luna, and then a little bit later on we added Talus. We added in integration with MySQL. And we added a persistent master key. This is a small line. It's really easy to overlook, but it's very, very important. If a database tries to retrieve its master key and that retrieval fails, the database assumes something is wrong and shuts down. We had a case, and this has been a while now, a couple of years, where one of our really good customers, they're a telecommunications provider, cell phone service provider, was running Oracle databases, using Transparent Data Encryption, and using Key Vault. And there was a momentary network interruption, not more than a couple of seconds. But the timing of that network interruption couldn't have been worse because it just happened to be when the database made a call for its master key. Key Vault wasn't there or couldn't be seen because the network wasn't connecting it. And so the database shut down. Now, the database in question was the database that drove their sales system, their in-store and online sales system. To make matters worse, this was the day of an iPhone launch. After the failure, it took almost 20 minutes to get the system back up. And 20 minutes on the day of an iPhone launch is a big deal for a cell phone provider. So we looked at what had happened and how we could handle that. And the best way to handle that was to insulate the database from periodic network outages, because in real life, you're going to see a network drop every now and then. What we did was we enabled a caching of the master key. So with persistent cache turned on, when the database requests its master key, that populates a cache that is managed by the server endpoint. That cache then services new requests until the cache expires, at which point the cache is poisoned, the key ages out, and a new key is brought down. What this did for us is it makes us much more survivable in the event of minor network outages. Even if someone reboots a Key Vault, we had another case where someone apparently kicked the plug out of a Key Vault or hit a shutdown on a rack or something, but for some reason the whole Key Vault power just went away and had to boot back up. It takes about 10-15 minutes to boot a Key Vault up. With persistent master cache, that's not an issue. If the network outage is momentary, as long as you haven't hit the time when the cache goes down, not a problem. Okay. We also added in support for the new National Security Algorithm Suite in Key Vault, and we've added support in for a couple of new email services for notifications. With Bundle Patch 4, we increased our support for Windows with 2008 and 2012 endpoint platform support. One of the things that we added, let me just go back, and this was in Bundle Patch 3, and this was that first line item, managing keys for databases on the cloud, is important for cloud deployments. There's a concept in a cloud deployment where you want to encrypt the data that you put in the cloud, and this is a very common thing to do, but you may not want your cloud provider to have the encryption key. And the purpose for this is if for some reason you lose confidence in your cloud provider, you can suspend access to the key, and that data that's in the cloud is encrypted, but with no key, nobody can read it. If you follow the Cloud Security Alliance's guidelines for deployments in the cloud, this is the model they recommend. Hold your own key. Your data's in the cloud encrypted, you have the key, and at any time you can remove access to it. So starting with Bundle Patch 3 of Key Vault, we added in support for HYOK. Now the way that would look would be something like this. Something happens. It really doesn't matter what it is, but you as the cloud admin determine that something is going on in that cloud service and you want to suspend access to that database. As the Key Vault admin, you're going to go into Key Vault, you're going to get the key for that database, and you're just going to click suspend. Immediately, that key is no longer available if the database asks for it. So you now have the time to go out, investigate what was the incident, what happened, if something needs to be changed, maybe you need to change the configuration, maybe you need to do a complete security view, doesn't matter what it is. You have all the time in the world to do it because your data is encrypted, nobody can read it. So you've taken the pressure off yourself. Once you've figured out whatever happened and made whatever fixes you need to, you go back into Key Vault, you simply resume access to the key, and voila, your database comes back up. It can access data, any application associated with it can work again, and you're ready to run. But you've handled this entire security incident without ever having to go out and delete a bunch of data and go through and figure out how, where you have copies of that data. All of that was handled very cleanly because your keys were always in your own control. This is what hold your own key is all about. Okay? Now, I've taken you up through Key Vault Bundle Patches 4. Bundle Patch 5 for Key Vault introduced the concept of read-only restricted mode when the standby becomes available. One of the things that you're worried about is if you have Key Vault in HA mode, you want to make sure that I never push a key into Key Vault, a key change, and have that only right in one place. Because if it does that, if that one Key Vault goes down, then you've lost your key, and that's not acceptable. So in previous versions of Key Vault, before these bundle patches, when any of the pair of Key Vaults failed, we stopped access to the keys. Now what we do is we continue, we just no longer accept changes to it. We've made a ton of improvements to the persistent master key cache since it came along. It's really proved to be a very good thing, and there's other vendors that are copying that now. We gave you the capability to forge your Key Vault database audit trail to a syslog server. So if you're using something like the Security Monitoring and Analytics service, you can forge your Key Vault database directly to that. We also, because there are a lot of people using Audit Vault and Database Firewall, of course, still support the direct integration with Audit Vault and Firewall. We added in support for bring your own TDE master key. Normally with Transparent Data Encryption, key generation is done at the database itself. Now that key generation is done randomly using well-known cryptographic algorithms, but we've had some customers who didn't want to use our key generation. They wanted to generate their own keys. We gave you that capability in bundle patches 5 and 6. Okay. We've got the operating system upgraded to Linux 6.9, and that's where it remains today. And we've made some changes to the UI a little bit friendlier and easier to use. So this is Key Vault as it is today, because the current release is Bundle Patch 6. This month, we hope to release Bundle Patch 7. I just want to show you the standard Oracle disclaimer here. It's not unusual for us to think we're going to release something one month. Maybe something happens in QA. We have to delay the release. There have been times when we think we're going to have functionality that comes out and it doesn't make it into the product. But as of right now, these are the things that we're planning for Key Vault. Do keep in mind, if you're evaluating Key Vault, you should evaluate it based on what it does today, not on what it might do 10 years from now. Okay? So here's what we're thinking of. Key Vault, suppose you have one Key Vault and that Key Vault has 100 databases that are using it. Each of those 100 databases has an endpoint. Each of those endpoint has a configuration file. Today in Bundle Patch 6, you control those configuration files on the endpoint servers. So if you want to make a change to your configuration, you're going to go to 100 different endpoints and you're going to make that change on 100 different endpoints. With Bundle Patch 7, we're working on allowing you to manage the endpoints from the Key Vault server, make configuration changes, and push those out to the endpoints. For large enterprise deployments, this is going to be a lifesaver. It is going to make administration of a key system so much easier. And so we're really excited to get this new functionality in. That should be in Bundle Patch 7 later this month. I talked about Audit Vault and how the Bundle Patch 8 that shipped earlier this month fixed the issue with UEFI boot. Well, we also have that same issue in Key Vault. We're working on that, but we don't have quite as much of a problem with Key Vault as we did with Audit Vault on support for this. Key Vault tends to have 1 or 2 servers, whereas Audit Vault might have 20 or 30. So it's not as big an issue, but we hope to get that fix into this upcoming bundle patch. If we don't, it'll be in release 13.1, which is the next major release, and that release will be not too far away. Bundle Patch 7 is probably the last major bundle patch before the 13.1 release. All right, so what I'm hoping you've taken away from this is that Key Vault is there to support your key store requirements for your Oracle infrastructure. It's primarily targeted at Oracle database, but it works with MySQL, WebLogic, all these others. It is optimized for key management. And really, if you have a TDE deployment and you're not using Key Vault, you might want to look at why you're not using it. It's the perfect complement for TDE. And that takes us to open Q&A. Remember, any topic is fair game, and if you have something you want to ask privately that you're not comfortable asking in open forum, please just send me an email. Patrick asked, is there a reason OKV is using Oracle 6.6 and not 7? We're actually up to 6.9, Patrick. That was part of Bundle Patch 6. Patrick, you'd asked a question before we started. You'd asked that in private. Is it okay if I say that publicly? Okay. So before we started, Patrick asked a follow-up question from last month's AskTOM session. We were planning the new release of the Database Security Assessment Tool. This would be version 2.02, and we'd hoped to have that out last month. We did have an issue where we had to put it back through QA again. It is still in QA now, but we do expect to have that out any day now. Pedro, I don't know if maybe you got an update this morning?
No, Russ, that's, yeah, that's correct. It should be out any day now, okay. So it was just, well, mainly we delayed it a bit to keep it simple, okay. So we've been challenged to simplify some of the SSL configuration, and we decided to do it and delay a bit the release. Not a big deal, but I think it's worth the investment to keep things simple, as that's one of the reasons why customers love DBSAT. So,
speaking of DBSAT, please, for the people on the call, if you have questions, ask them. But if you don't, I just want to tell you about a new capability in DBSAT that you may not have seen unless you also happen to be an Audit Vault and Database Firewall user and also happen to have just installed Bundle Patch 8, which came out a few weeks ago. So if you're using DBSAT, you may know that the January release, version 2 of DBSAT, added in sensitive data discovery. Well, we've integrated DBSAT's sensitive data discovery with a new set of reports that comes out, or that came out in Audit Vault and Database Firewall Bundle Patch 8. For that, if we go to the Auditor's Guide and we go down to Reports, one of the new reports, hang on, I got to find it because this is still new for me too. One of the new reports, section of reports, are data privacy reports. And as part of the data privacy reports, we include a sensitive data report. Who has accessed sensitive data? In order to give you that report, Audit Vault has to know which things you think are sensitive. And so we give you two ways to tell Audit Vault what you think is sensitive. One is to import the sensitive data discovery output from Enterprise Manager. Version 13.1, 13.2, and the upcoming 13.3 versions of Enterprise Manager have a sensitive data discovery tool built into them that we include along with all of your security licenses. So the license to use sensitive data discovery comes with advanced security or database vault or label security or data masking, but you can do sensitive data discovery there. And then we include the free sensitive data discovery in DBSat, which the new version also works with. So you can take either of these, the DBSat sensitive data discovery output or the Enterprise Manager sensitive data discovery output, and that can drive your sensitive data compliance reporting within Audit Vault. For those who are joining from Europe, which at this time of the day I suspect is the majority of the people that are on, kind of our target here is we know there's an increased need to monitor sensitive data access, especially personal data access, and we wanted to give you some way to do that within our system. So this is kind of how we get
there. General roadmap for the security products, kind of like the database, we know out multiple years on when a rough idea of the different versions are coming.
For most of the security products, they ship with the database. For example, TDE, that's part of the database. Database Vault, Label Security, those are parts of the database. Data masking ships with Enterprise Manager. The current release of data masking is 13.2. There will be a 13.3 release later this year or early next year, more likely early next year, that you'll see the 13.3 release of Enterprise Manager, and that's where data masking and subsetting will go on. For Key Vault, as I'd mentioned, Bundle Patch 7, which is due out this month, is right now, we plan that to be the last bundle patch, and the next major release of Key Vault will be 13.1, and that'll be sometime within the next year. For Audit Vault and Database Firewall, current release is 12.2 Bundle Patch 8. We expect there to be a Bundle Patch 9, and that'll be the terminal patch for Key Vault. The next major release will be 13.1, and we expect that sometime early next year. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Good deal.
On the Key Vault, will it eventually be supported by an OMS agent to monitor it?
It's supported. Wait, an OMS agent?
The OEM.
Do you? OEM. Oh, yes. So that's actually supported today.
For
you
Key
can
Vault.
install. Yeah, absolutely. You can install an Enterprise Manager agent on Key Vault. There isn't a separate Key Vault plugin. So what you do is you just install the normal EM agent. You run target discovery. It'll discover the operating system, the database listener, and the database itself.
Okay.
And really, that's Key Vault.
Okay. Will it be kind of the same steps you have to go through, like when you deploy it on Audit Vault?
It'll be exactly the same. You're going to have to go in. You're going to have to put a permanent exception in IPsec to allow a connection between the EM agent and the backend EM. Yeah, it's going to be the same steps. I think I've got a MetaLink note on that out there. We also have the ability to do custom metrics in EM. There is a KMIP daemon. So there's one listening service that runs on the Key Vault server that will typically advise you to run your own custom metric for. So far, it's so generic that there's been no need to create a separate plugin. That's a lot of development effort, but we have a lot of customers just monitoring with EM. If you don't want to use EM, it does support SNMP traps.
Yeah, it's just easier to get it to know if it's up or down.
Yep, EM does that just fine today, and very, very easy to install. The only thing you got to watch out for is that IPsec. You've got to make sure you make a persistent change to it. So actually you go into the configuration file rather than just doing a one-time change.
Yeah, one of the mod docs on setting it up on the Audit Vault seemed to be a bug in the writing, because it has you modifying the OS file, and then you run some update command which takes those config files and then it overwrites it. You have to actually go into that config file to set it.
Yes.
Earlier
And
than that,
I thought I had fixed that. Is that still, are you saying that's still in that MOS note?
From a couple months ago, it seemed like it was.
Oh, I thought I fixed that long ago. Hang on. These are the steps for it that I used when I wrote that note. So we go in, we do that.
Is there some OS command thing?
Yeah, so you have to add in this line here to the IP tables template, and then you run this command to read that.
Yeah.
Okay. If you get a chance, send me that note number and I'll get it fixed. I know we had this come up earlier, but I would have sworn we had fixed that months ago. And shame on me for not double checking, but I know we put in the change to get it fixed.
Okay. Yeah, it's on my desk somewhere.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, that one took me like a day or two to figure it out, going, why does this thing keep resetting on itself?
Yep. And for me to ask, is there a link to the note? You're asking about the MOS note that Jim and I are talking about. I don't have it, but if you will send me an email, I'll find it and get it for you. It's just it's a note in my Oracle support.
Yeah, I think if you search it for like OEM agent on Audit Vault, that's where you find it.
Yeah. Other questions? I'd like to thank everyone for attending, and we will see you next month for Ask Tom. That'll be on the 12th of July, and we haven't picked our topic yet, but I'll update the Ask Tom website with it as soon as we have. But again, thanks to everyone for attending.